I'd like to welcome all of our viewers here to the Microsoft 365 Business Boost Show. I am your host, Therman Trotman. I'm one half of your host, Therman Trotman. Nick DeCourcy, as you can see, is my co-host.
Hi.
And yeah, Nick, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm great.
It's our last show of 2024.
It is. We're knee deep in the holiday season here, and we are rounding up or closing out the year. And with that, we should probably fall in line with what people do, which is, do kind of like a year in review.
I thought you were going to mean drinking excessively. But yeah, we can do a year in review as well.
No. We don't got to do that.
Okay.
So, listen, I want to talk to you about what happened this year and kind of like what's happening next year. So we'll talk about, what we like, what we didn't like, that type of thing, that type of stuff. So first, let's talk about what was most frustrating to you, in the world of, 365 and business. After we do that, then we'll talk about, what was most exciting. And after most exciting, what do you want to see more of? And then after that, what you're looking forward to most. But again, let's start with what was most frustrating. What you got there?
Okay. I feel like I'm being put on the spot here, but I will say that most frustrated in 2024, I'm going to go with something Copilot, and I'm going to say Copilot Pages.
Copilot Pages.
Copilot Pages. So how we now have the opportunity in Copilot, we can click editing pages and we get this loop page turn up, which is an experience where we can work with the AI and other people in our team collaboratively on the AI results. And I think it's a frustrating experience. I don't think it is really at this point what it's sold as, because I don't think that it's not really a dialogue with Copilot anymore. It's just essentially a shortcut to copy and paste stuff that Copilot has produced into a Copilot page. And when we look at options that are out there like Canvas in ChatGPT, where you are able to genuinely go back and forth between an editing experience and a chat experience with ChatGPT, and depending on what you want to do, edit and change from both directions, then I think Copilot Pages looks like something that doesn't quite work for what we might want. And so I found it frustrating the way that it's been described. I found the lack of functionality there a bit frustrating, and I'm certainly hoping that we see that improve fairly radically in 2025.
Yeah. So I'm not heavily using, not even heavily, I'm not using Copilot Pages. So
Yep.
I can't even, corroborate your story there, but, I trust your judgment. So I don't even know where to go with that, but hopefully, to your point, they do something better next year. Because
I'm not using them either.
all right, well.
So what about you? What have you found frustrating?
Well, a few things, but I'm only going to pick one. And that is my experience with Clipchamp.
Okay.
Because, look, video is very important inside and outside the business. But it doesn't feel like Microsoft is putting as much attention and resources on Clipchamp as they can. And what Clipchamp is, that's the video tool inside of Microsoft 365 where you can edit your videos. And it's a good tool. Like, I like Clipchamp, but many times I have to take Clipchamp, the final product, out of Clipchamp and then put it in another tool to shrink it. Like, I have to reduce the size because what comes out of Clipchamp is just huge for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is. And then, if you remember our show where we talked about, how we cheat on Microsoft, I use a different tool, and that tool, I use it because I have lost. Okay, I didn't lose faith, but it's more reliable than Microsoft Stream, which is where you would create the video. And I have to create it elsewhere, bring it into 365 to finish up the editing because that tool can't do things that Clipchamp can do. Then I have to, after Clipchamp, reduce the size of the video. This is unfortunate. You know what I'm saying? I don't like this user experience. And now I believe Microsoft has combined Clipchamp with Stream. It's kind of like if you go to Stream, you'll see Clipchamp, or if you go to Clipchamp, you'll see, or if you go to Stream, you'll see Clipchamp integrated, I believe. It's just, it needs attention. Video is important. And I would really like for them to up their Clipchamp game along with Stream and allow me to go back to recommending that tool with my chest. But if you pay for the Microsoft 365 suite and you have this available, you still should just use it, encourage your employees to use it, because eventually it'll get better. You know, I'm a freelancer, I'm doing things differently. I would recommend for your businesses, you just use the tools that are there and then just, you know, support around it. But that is what I'm most frustrated with, is the lack of growth with Clipchamp.
Yeah, I don't use Clipchamp. I do all of my video editing in DaVinci Resolve. And so that's a paid, there is a free version of it, but it's a paid product. So I've decided to buy that. There's lots of things that I do in Resolve that I know I can do in Clipchamp. But there's a learning curve to doing something in a different piece of software. So there's that kind of inertia of staying where I'm at. But I do think this is something where there's been a lot of, there has been a lot of changes there. And I'll be interested to see what happens with the AI type of changes next year with Clipchamp. I'd be interested to see, for example, will we start seeing Sora video generation in Clipchamp, for example? Because I don't know where else Microsoft might insert that kind of video generation capability that it might be getting from OpenAI through its deal with OpenAI into the Microsoft 365 suite. So perhaps there will be some work that goes into this to alleviate your frustration and add some additional features. However, I think the most frustrating thing for me with Clipchamp is it is a bit of a tongue twister, and every time I say it, I have to try to be very precise, because I'm concerned that something that may not be rude but sounds rude is going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually have that problem with a different word. I forgot what word it is, but it's what is it? It's I'll remember eventually, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But maybe we can petition Microsoft to change the name of Clipchamp so that, you know, we can work that for you.
I mean, if it was a different name, maybe they would feel better about making announcements about it, because there wouldn't be any risk in getting up on the Ignite stage and suddenly saying something that sounds terrible.
Right. Oh, that's what it was. Cohort. Every time I say cohort, I have to think about it before I say it. Because the way you feel about Clipchamp is the way I feel about cohort. I hate that word.
So moving on to the next in our cohort of items where we're reviewing 2024. Why don't we learn what it is that you are most wanting more of in 2025?
All right, so Nick, let me tell you. Agents have come to SharePoint, and we talked about this last episode. We talked a little bit about this, and we've mentioned it a couple times. But so agents right now are available for SharePoint, but it's SharePoint I'm seeing in libraries. So you create these agents and have them use your documents as their knowledge sources, which is cool. Yep. You know what I'm saying? That's not even cool. Let me not downgrade that. It is pretty dope. It's a really nice thing to have, because organizations have tons and tons of documents. It would be cool if we can get them to a place of having some agents, you know, help them clean this whole situation up, which will help employees work better. So excellent. And it's constantly growing, evolving. It's a whole thing. Selfishly, I don't like documents that much, so I'm looking forward to seeing them include lists. I want more agents, not more agents. Well, I guess more agents, but more knowledge sources.
But whether you want more agents or not, you are going to get more agents. I guarantee it, Therman.
Okay.
Just putting that out there. There ain't no choice. I want it. Your cohort of agents is going to be getting bigger and bigger. It's going to be a huge cohort.
I need that on lists, on Microsoft lists, on SharePoint lists. Documents are fine. It's just that I personally don't use a lot of documents. I use lists. So I would love to see the agents using that as a knowledge source. What about you, Nick? What say you?
So I will say I agree with you. I think this is a big issue, not just for SharePoint agents, but across Copilot. There are certain things that, we're putting this out on Monday, we're recording on Friday. The video that I just put out today about my predictions for 2025 for Copilot, one of my items is exactly this, of I think that this issue of having an asterisk next to the claim that Copilot can see all of your stuff in Microsoft 365 needs to disappear in 2025, because there are certain things like list data that it just doesn't see right now. I mean, you can get to it if you're going to use like connectors in an agent or something like that, but the out-of-the-box Copilot experience doesn't see that stuff, and it's a problem. And my view is that this is a tax on using Copilot to those organizations that prior to Copilot have invested the most effort in adopting modern work in the image that Microsoft wants us to. The way that they sell to us modern work, like lists, metadata in SharePoint, all of these kinds of things, they don't come through to Copilot. And it's crazy to me that that's the case, because it's not building on the foundation of what Microsoft has been telling us is the exemplar setup for a modern work tenant over the course of many years at this point. So I certainly hope that what you're looking forward to comes to pass, or what you're wanting more of comes to pass. And I hope that it's applied right the way across Microsoft 365 Copilot, because I just think that people buy Copilot and assume that it sees everything in Microsoft 365 because that's the headline, and that's what people want.
Yeah, because you know what this does, Nick, is it flies right in the face of my recommendation, which is get out of these spreadsheets. And your agent right now can do better with that spreadsheet than it can with a list. Matter of fact, not do better, it can, period. It can do with your spreadsheet, it can't with my list. And I'm like, why are we here? Like, why?
I mean, kind of. I mean, there's some subtlety to this issue, which is obviously when we're talking about structured data and we're doing some kind of transactional request on structured data based on some parameter that we want to push into that request, or I'm matching a title, or I'm matching a date, or I'm matching a category that something's under. We can actually more reliably capture that data using a connector and pulling that out in the way that we would in Power Automate. There's no ambiguity to that. There's no hallucination. You're just pulling data out and you're going to get the right answer for it. But if you don't have data that's structured in that way, if you don't have that good structured data, you look at an Excel spreadsheet. We talked about this on our last show. You have a well-structured spreadsheet, good tables, it makes sense, anyone would understand it. Copilot is going to understand it too. You have data that's all over the place and isn't structured well in an Excel spreadsheet, then Copilot isn't going to understand it. It can see it, but it's not going to understand it. So it's that issue of just being able to grab it and represent it in a response, or actually understanding that data and pulling the right data from it. So I do think there is some subtlety to this, of just because Copilot can see a file doesn't mean you're going to get value in using Copilot to extract data from that file. Yeah,
good point. But in the I was about to say in the off chance, but I'll say in the chance that you have structured your spreadsheets in a good way, you are ahead of the pack.
Exactly.
And I love Excel when used properly. When used properly, Excel is it's a great tool. I just, like I said, I need these agents to look at my lists. Period.
Yep.
Nick, what about you?
So I would like to see more of what OpenAI just did over its run up to the holidays, which was its 12 days presentations of new products. I don't know whether you saw any of these, but each day they did a 15-minute presentation. They
No, I did not.
announced something, whether that be ChatGPT Pro or projects or whatever it may be on the different days. And for the vast majority of them, shortly afterward, that feature was enabled for users of ChatGPT. And you were able, within the course of 15 minutes, to understand it. There was a link to get you more information so you could dig into the detail of it and you could get hands-on with it. I would like to see more of that, but I would like to see it coming from Microsoft. I think the complexity of the presentations around new features and the digging through different blog posts, different information about what's going to be coming up, and the timelines between something being announced and, you know, even saying this is generally available and it actually turning up so you can use it, it's just got too complicated. So I would really like to think that in doing that this year, OpenAI is kicking off something that can come to more of the tech industry, to do simpler presentations that are more timely and more connected to when we're actually going to get hands-on with new stuff.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think Microsoft struggles with that for multiple reasons, but you know, organization been around for a long time. It's a pretty big organization. They got a lot of moving pieces, so you know they could do well with adapting a smaller company approach. Yeah, but that's difficult. You know what I'm saying? That's a difficult thing to do. But I like it. I'd love to see that. Damn, that's a difficult one. I don't know. But yeah. I'd like to see that too. Man, I missed this OpenAI stuff. I'm gonna go back and check this out.
You need to go look at some of those videos. They did some pretty cool stuff. So, what have you been most excited about?
Well, this year, forms for SharePoint, or what's the technical term? Forms for lists. Which lists, you know, come in two different ways, which is Microsoft lists, SharePoint lists. They need to really relax. See, real quick, side note, back to what you were just talking about. This is a problem. I mean, why do you have Microsoft lists and you have SharePoint, which has SharePoint lists, and then SharePoint lists and Microsoft lists are literally the same thing? Why are we here? What are we doing?
Yes, depending on where do you start with them. You start in SharePoint or you start somewhere else, and the direction of travel dictates what it's called. I mean, for a long time, I think this has been changed now, but for a long time, there was a distinctly different UI that you were seeing over the top of lists, depending on whether you started in SharePoint or you started in OneDrive. Yes. But in the background, it appeared like if you looked at it with something like Power Automate and pulled some data out of it, it appeared to be exactly the same technology, just wrapped in a different UI layer.
Right. That is, why were we there at all? You know what I'm saying? Like that made it difficult when I was talking to clients about the differences. You know what I'm saying? Yep. The main differences was that the way that it looked. And I'm like, why do they look different? What's the point of this? Are you trying to make this a different app? I guess you are, because okay. Anyway, let me relax. So what I was most excited about were forms for lists. And here's why. Again, with this UI. So while the SharePoint list and the Microsoft list had two different UIs, one that was the included in that were the forms. So if you went to SharePoint list and you used the forms, there was a different UX and UI with Microsoft list forms. So two different things going on there, right? Now this year they added a button that says forms, which allows you to create multiple forms for your list. A thing that you could have done in the past, but you'd have to leave SharePoint to do it. Like you could do that with Power Apps, and you know you could accomplish it that way.
Well, kind of. I mean, you could, but it was a it was a slightly different experience. Like what you could do with the forms is different to what you would do with Power Apps.
Right. But having the ability to, I mean, if you know how to bend and twist these tools a certain way, then you can do what I'm talking about. But I like end user friendly things, and this feels more end user friendly. It can get a little bit more end user friendly if you ask me, but still, this is end user friendly. Now, the reason why I like it is because of that. The interface gives you a better looking form. Even when you're editing the form, it gives you a better looking interface. And I think this is great for end users to build forms. So when I currently tell an end user to build a form, and here's the things you could do, they have to take the same approach that is a technical approach kind of to do it. If I told them to build a Microsoft form, damn near anybody can do this. It's a way more user-friendly experience. So now they have brought the end user, or they're trying to bring the end user experience, the friendly end user experience of forms to SharePoint list forms.
But I still have a question about that, Therman. That's like, so you have Microsoft Forms, and now we have forms in Microsoft Lists, right?
Yes.
I cannot understand why there simply wasn't an option created in Microsoft Forms to target a list as the place where the data goes when someone has submitted the form, or alternatively from Microsoft Lists create a Microsoft form that is attached to that list. Why is there the need now for two distinct but very similar products that create forms, and yet the audience that you can target with them are different?
There is, right now, my hunch is that will go away. That the default form experience will eventually land on where Microsoft Forms is, because it's just better. I just don't understand why we're not there, because if you take the power, if you take the ease of use of Microsoft Forms and connect it to the power of SharePoint, which a lot of us in the community already know about, because you have to go to Power Automate right now to use your form, get your Microsoft Form answers into a SharePoint list. But with the emergence of forms for lists, you get that forms vibe, which is SharePoint list. We're still not there yet, though, because it would be ideal if we could take, like I said, the Microsoft Forms interface, and that is our form management interface, period. Because it's just easy. And we have the power of SharePoint behind it.
But I mean, in Forms, Microsoft Forms, not SharePoint Forms or Microsoft List Forms, the default way of syncing those responses is using an Excel spreadsheet, which again jumps back. So if you go into Forms and you want to sync and see all of the responses somewhere that is outside of Forms, the default experience to do, well, the only experience to do that without involving Power Automate is to sync them to an Excel spreadsheet.
Correct.
Yet, I imagine that that's the type of thing where you would probably look, if you went into someone's environment and saw they were storing all of that type of data in an Excel spreadsheet, that would be the first place where you'd say you should probably be using Microsoft Lists. So there's this disconnect that Microsoft is building into its own products versus it's kind of like do what we say, not what we do.
Yeah, but I don't even know why I expect this. Actually, I do know.
Because you're an optimist.
And because of what we were talking about earlier. SharePoint lists didn't match the experience of Microsoft lists. But lo and behold, they wisened up and they made them match. Like they're now equivalent. So that gave me hope. Once I saw Forms, friend of the show, Ami Diamond, I had a chat with him, And I said to him, I think that this will become the default way that we interact with these forms in the future, because it's just better. That's just the main answer. Because even if you talk about SharePoint lists and Microsoft lists, when they were different, Microsoft lists, that interface was better for a number of reasons. There was a couple things that were like weird, but it was a better interface. So they went to the better interface, and now it's, the same. I feel like once they get to the point where they recognize, or maybe they already recognize, but it's in the process, that managing your forms this way is just 2 million times better than the current way, we'll eventually get to there, and that will be the landing place. So that's what was most exciting for me, is that they gave us forms for lists. Jesus, this is it's very difficult. What about you, Nick?
Mine is more straightforward. Agents. You've already talked about agents, but agents generally, I think, is the most exciting thing. I've talked here before about how I spent the year thinking Copilot extensibility was this interesting idea, but actually getting to the point of having something that seemed logical to execute, it just wasn't there. To the point of doing workshops with clients where we would talk about these technologies, and even very technical people would still kind of be scratching their head at the end of an hour looking at what Copilot extensibility was, because it was just very complex and convoluted. And then what we got was agents, a rethinking, a remodeling of this extensibility platform. All the things that were there before are still there, but they're just kind of moved around to have this agent wrapper around them. And it makes so much more sense. It's so much easier to describe and connect people with examples of how you would use this. And it's just so much easier to get moving with. I mean, I went from a point where you could spend a period of time with very technical people, and they would have no idea where to start, because they just couldn't connect this with what they wanted to do, to the point where I'm now doing workshops where non-technical people are building agents in an hour. And they start with zero, and by the end of the hour, they've got something. It's not the most sophisticated agent you're ever going to have, but they've got the basics of something that's going to help them with a task or a project that they're working on. It's night and day different. I don't think there's anything else that Microsoft has pushed out in the course of the last year that has so changed a product as much as agents has changed Copilot extensibility.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's good. I like that, because that also feels to me like it gives it a better. One thing I'm always about talking to my clients. So like you do the workshops, I need to know what I'm going to say in that workshop that's going to make it click. I need to be able to say those things. So agents to me is a way better way to explain what you can do with Copilot versus, previous. So I get to call them like people. I'm like, consider your agents like literal agents, like people, you know what I'm saying? And they know these things, and you train these people to know these things and have access to these things. It's like so much better to communicate. I'm all about communication. So I like that. I'll still go with most exciting for me was lists and forms.
No,
I like this too.
Lists. Forms and lists, though.
Forms and lists. Forms and lists. My bad. Forms and lists. But I like this too. All right. So lastly.
Okay.
What you're most looking forward to. 2025 is upon us. What you got there, Nick?
So I think the thing that I'm most looking forward to for next year is Copilot Actions.
Copilot,
this is
what was it?
Actions.
Okay.
So this has been a change for me, because when I first saw Copilot Actions, I was kind of like, what's the point of this? I don't see the point. But the more that I've thought about it, and the more that I've discussed it with people, the more that I see this as being a really important factor to enabling people to customize, tailor Copilot to the way that they want it to work. And basically how this is going to work is that you can direct Copilot to do something on your behalf that isn't happening real time in response to a prompt that you're writing at that point. So say you need to collect information for a newsletter that you send out every week to your team, and there's certain people in your team that you need to collect information from. You can set Copilot the task of going about that, and go ahead and do the job of collecting that information and doing whatever you want with it. But obviously it's not happening real time, it's happening asynchronously because the other people involved aren't responding to Copilot immediately when you ask for this to happen. So I think the Copilot Actions is really going to change how people are using Copilot, and I'm certainly looking forward to trying it out when we get access to it. How about you?
Okay, so I got one, but let me ask you a little bit more about these actions. So in your example, where I can get responses for the company newsletter.
Yep.
What is that, like via email? Like I send out the newsletter via email, and
what
then,
it appears to be doing is creating. So the asset that it appears to be creating is a Copilot page that can then be shared to you the way that you want it to be shared with you. So one experience could be email. This may add a bit more value to these Copilot pages that I talked about at the start of our conversation. And so that seems to be the way that it appears to work. I mean, there isn't a lot of information on this right now. It's in private preview, and I'm not part of that private preview, and even if I was, I probably couldn't talk about it. So I'm not part of that private preview though, so I haven't had a chance to be hands-on with it. But yeah, that seems to be the intent of creating a Copilot page and then pushing it out to you in some way. So essentially, Copilot it's not taking care of an entire process from start to finish, but it's going to take care of a task that is more than one step. So the steps could be send this out, wait for a response. When you've got all the responses, summarize those responses and stick them together in an email to me.
Right, gotcha. Okay, all right, yeah. I'm looking forward to that too. I'd like to see that in action, see what that looks like. What I'm most looking forward to is something that you actually told me about. Okay. And that would be Copilot coming to the GCC high tenant, and what that is where the government works. So I thought that Copilot was going to be multiple years before being made available. It was going to be multiple years before it was going to be made available to the government. I did not expect to hear that, one, I believe it's already there, but two, as early as next year, updates are coming out and things are going to be happening. I am looking forward to this so much because it will. One of the things that the public sector complains about is that they're always behind when it comes to technology. I love all of the current Microsoft tools that allows me to show them that you don't have to be behind. Look at the things you can do that private industry can do as well. But this is a big one because I did not expect them to get it this soon. So because they're getting it this soon, I get to insert myself there and be like, look at all the cool things you can do. You are on par as much as you can be with industry, you know what I'm saying? Private industry. So I am very much looking forward to that. And all the developments. I know there's going to be some agencies that's still not even going to incorporate it, even though it's available. But for the agencies that are, I'm excited for you because I'll be trying to find you and telling you all the cool things you can do. So looking forward to that.
Have you yet seen that there's much interest from that community in pushing this out?
So I don't even know that. I think it's a situation where, okay, no, I can't say that. So I don't really know, at least from my circle, which is, a few clients that are in that area and a lot of people that are in that area that aren't my clients.
Yep.
And some of them seem to even some of them seem to take an interest in AI, period. Some are just like it's not even on their radar. So it's a mixed bag from my point of view. I don't have any data to say, anything concrete, but from my point of view, it's a mixed bag. But I know if I'm able to present anything in a way that says you can work better and it's not going to be a big mountain for you to climb, I'm in. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to spread the word. And I think that clients and potential clients, they jump on board as well when I show them from that point of view. You can work better, but you don't have a big mountain to climb to do it, which is where I need Copilot to be in order for me to show it to them.
And I imagine the one thing this does say, Therman, is for those people out there who look at Copilot and question the validity of the security or compliance claims that Microsoft is making about that product, that it would be hard to swallow that it's being deployed out to those government tenants, those government clouds, as an option, unless there was some level of validation of those claims in terms of it doesn't train on your data, for example. I know some people are like, well, Microsoft might just say that, but clearly all of this stuff is being stored. When you get into these kind of these government clouds, that can't be a possibility. So the fact that it's being deployed out there, should that say to some of those people in private business who are looking at these products with suspicion of, well, if it's good enough for the US government to be safe with your data, then it's probably good enough for you?
Yes, but there are some folks who are kind of in a different basket. But I think for the most part, I would say yes. I would go with yes,
Okay.
because for multiple reasons. But for that, there's a lot of important data that needs to be protected. There's some very smart people who are working with Microsoft to make sure that that data is protected. And so, yes, you should absolutely consider that, and also consider that as you weigh it against your business as well.
Yeah.
So your private business. So yes, Nick, I would say yes. Nick, well, that's it. We are at the end here. We've ran through our thoughts here, but yeah, last show of the year. Looking forward to 2025. If you are a business and maybe this is your first time watching the show, or maybe you're a frequent watcher, I would encourage you to look into some of these things that we talked about and see how it might apply for your business, because you can make 2025 a pretty good year if you prepare yourself for the things that are coming up on the horizon. Specifically, if you are already paying for the Microsoft 365 suite, your employees are using it, you're using it, it's a whole thing. So, we're here to help. If you need some help with any of this stuff, reach out. Nick, here is to 2025.
It's 2025. Great 2024, and on to big things in 2025.
All right. Well, before we go, do you have anything personally that you would like to let folks know about?
Well, we've just been talking about Copilot and Copilot safety and it rolling out to all different types of places. I have a course, Responsible AI for Business Users. So if you're the director of the CIA and you're just deciding to bring on Microsoft 365 Copilot and you want your team to know more about how to use it safely, then feel free to reach out. I've got a course that can offer that to you. And if you're not the director of the CIA and you're just running a private business and you're deciding to use Copilot and you want some help on how your staff can use Copilot responsibly, then I'm also happy to help you as well. So take a look at the link down in the description to find out about Responsible AI for Business Users. I think this is a really important point, even though these products are, from a technical point of view, as safe as Microsoft can make them. There are still some things that your users need to do in order to use them effectively and safely. So feel free to find out more about that training. How about you, Therman?
Well, for me, I think in the new year, I'm going to hold an event for what I think you need to do in 2025, just to at least start the year off right. If you currently do not manage your intranet, where, a one-stop shop for all your employees to find everything, I think I'm going to hold an event just so you can see why it's important for you to even have that. I'm a one-man show over here, and I have an intranet where all of my business stuff goes. So if I need to find something, it's all there. There's more to it, but that's the number one thing. All of your business assets in one area that you can locate, as well as your employees. So just follow me on LinkedIn to be notified of when that happens. Link, again, should be in the description. All right. Nick, has been great. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great. We will see you in the next episode.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year.